We got some news today with Israel. So Israel strikes military tanks in southern Syria where government forces clash with the Druze militias. We're going to get all into the details today. So here we have the Associated Press. Israel strikes military tanks in southern Syria where government forces a clash with the Druze militia. So Israel's army said Monday it struck military tanks southern Syria where government forces and the Bedouin tribes clashed with the Druze militia in the latest escalation in the Middle East country struggling for stability after a 13-year civil war. So if you remember here recently in Syria, their leader Assad fled the country. So the country has been very tumultuous as of late. We're going to get into what are the Druze militia, where is this province that they're at. So dozens of people have been killed in the fighting between local militias and clans in Syria's Suwayda province. We're going to come back to this article, but here is Suwayda. So here you've got Israel, you've got Syria up here. So here on its northeast border, you have this a city called Suwayda, spelled a little different here, but you can spell it either way. So Suwayda right here inside of Syria. And inside of Suwayda, there is a huge Druze population, the Druze population. So a Druze is an Arab group. Got this pulled up right here. So Druze is a small Middle Eastern religious sect characterized by an eclectic system of doctrines, yada, yada. The Druze numbered more than 1 million people in the early 21st century and lived mostly in Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. So they're not Jewish, they're Arab, but they're not actually Muslim. But the Druze and the Israeli people have a connection there. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Why is Israel protecting the Druze people? So dozens of people have been killed in the fighting between local militias and clans in Syria's Suwayda province. Government security forces that were sent to restore order Monday also clashed with local armed groups. Syria's interior ministry says more than 30 people have died and nearly 100 others have been injured. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a UK-based war monitor, reported at least 99 dead, including 2 children, 2 women, and 14 members of security forces. So that is Israel strikes tanks against the Syrian forces that were fighting with the Druze people. The clashes in Syria initially broke out between armed groups from the Druze and the Sunni Bedouin clans, the observatory said, with some members of the government security forces actively participating in support of the Bedouins. The Syrian Interior Ministry spokesperson said government forces entered Suwayda in the early morning to restore order. Some clashes occurred with outlawed groups, but our forces are doing their best to prevent any civilian casualties. So the Druze people have their own militia inside of Syria. So when Syria had their long civil war, the Druze people created their own militia. So there is a lot of fighting that goes on there. Al-Baba told the AP that the clashes are fundamentally not sectarian in nature. The real conflict is between the state and the bandits and criminals, not between the state and any Syrian community. On the contrary, the state views the Druze community in Suwayda as a partner in advancing the national unity project. They said the conflict started with the kidnapping and robbery of a Druze vegetable seller by members of a Bedouin tribe who set up a checkpoint, leading to a tit-for-tat attacks and kidnapping. So they had some sort of local conflict and it got bigger. So here we go with Israel. Why is Israel coming into Syria to protect the Druze people? So the Israeli defense minister, Katz, said in a statement that the Israeli military attacked targets in Syria as a message and a clear warning to the Syrian regime. We will not allow harm to the Druze in Syria. In Israel, the Druze are seen as a loyal minority and often serve in the armed forces. Inside of Israel, Jewish people, Jewish men who are able-bodied military people are forced to fight in the military, while many Arabs are not, but the Druze who are Arabs also fight in the military forces of Israel. While many Druze in Syria have said they do not want Israel to intervene on their behalf, factions from the Druze minority have also been suspicious of the new authorities in Damascus after former President Bashar Assad fled the country in December during a rebel offensive led by the Sunni Islamist insurgent groups. On several occasions, Druze groups have clashed with security forces from the new government or allied factions. In May, Israeli forces struck a site near the presidential palace in Damascus in what was seen as a warning to the Syrian interim President Ahmad al-Shara. The strike came after dozens were killed in fighting between pro-government gunmen and Druze fighters in the town of Sanya and the Druze majority Damascus suburb of Jaramana. All right, so that's what's been going on. So the Druze people have been fighting with the Syrian government. Israel has sworn allegiance to the Druze people and said we're going to protect the Druze people with this new government that has come in, this interim government. In Syria, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. There's this faction against this faction, and then there's this group tied with Turkey it's a lot of stuff going on. Here's Reuters, just kind of going further about it. Defense person reported that a number of troops were also injured during attacks on military points by outlawed groups. Close ties between the state of Israel and its 120,000 Druze citizens. So Israel has 120,000 of these Druze citizens inside their country, strengthened by the fact that Druze men serve in the Israel Defense Forces. The fight on Sunday left 30 people dead and prompted Syria's security forces to deploy units to the city to restore calm and guarantee safe passage for civilians looking to leave. All right, so that's what's going on. There's a lot of disagreement whether Israel should be getting involved in these countries and other conflicts of the countries around them. Some people say yes, they should protect the Druze people. Some say they shouldn't. I do want to pull this up. Here are 5 reasons why Israel has vowed to protect the Druze community. First of all is their loyalty to the state of Israel. Unlike many other Arab groups in Israel, Druze men are subject to mandatory military service in the IDF. Military and security contributions. So because they're fighting the military, they felt more allegiance to them. Social integration. Druze Israelis are citizens of Israel, often integrated into the broader fabric of society through education, politics, and public service. Number 4 would be religious tensions and protection needs. In neighboring Syria and Lebanon, Druze communities have been vulnerable during civil wars and regional instability. Political and moral commitment. Israel leaders across the political spectrum often refer to a moral obligation to protect the Druze, calling it a blood alliance. In times of tension or conflict, like during regional military operations, Israel reiterates its commitment to the safety and dignity of the Druze community. So there we go. That's what's been going on. We'll see what happens next. If you'd like to see more kind of news like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with a friend. Share your opinion in the comments. I will see you next time.